Hello and welcome back to Two Andrews, One Barbell. I'm Andrew Rowe and
I'm Andrew Blackwood.
this is episode 3 already.
Yes.
Yeah, flying along.
Straight in.
Flying along. This actually flew in quicker than we expected.
Way
as well,
quicker.
Because you were away.
I was away all of last week, and then we realised last night that we're going to be recording again today, and we were not prepared whatsoever.
We is an exaggeration as well. Mario remembered that we were to record, and we were like, yeah,
we're in. And then I was texting Andrew, I was going, what are we going to talk about? Because I was not mentally prepared to do this today.
Yeah.
So what we planned to do was go back through some like Instagram Q&A section things and just take some questions from there. And I think we'll just go through them in today's podcast. They're a bit of a mishmash, questions from all over the place. The topics will be vast, I imagine. Hopefully it will inspire some tangents and we can touch on some interesting topics.
It does make me think though that anyone listening, if you have any questions, send them in to us because we do actually look at the questions and we do want to answer. We like to talk about things that people want to hear about. So
yes, you can DM us, I would say, but we'll put up those Instagram, what do you even call them? Question boxes? Yeah, we'll put up a few of them and we'll get some.
Andrew's DMs are so full, so just maybe DM me, like I'll actually reply.
Yeah. Well, what are we up to today? What's going on? Just so we can preview. How's training going? How are you feeling? Before we get into the questions, just where are we at in our lives at the moment?
I'm kicking, I'm alive and well. Training's going really well, to be fair.
Yeah.
I'm in hypertrophy phase as planned. We had planned to make it about 2 blocks length, so between 7 and 9 weeks, bringing me towards early December. I'm only 3.5 weeks in, 4, I think this is week 4, and I feel incredible. I feel like I've put on so much muscle, I feel like Superman.
How heavy are you?
I'm now at 101, which is great because I weighed in, after breakfast I weighed in at 98.8 at the meet. So I was training at about 98, 97.5, so to be 101 after going to the toilet before breakfast, that's fantastic.
That's big.
PB, it was a weight that you've hit long in advance. Like you've hit this
years
weight before,
ago.
Yeah.
Way bigger than you, way more muscular, a lot leaner as well.
Benching way less. So that's all true, benching way less.
Yeah,
so,
whatever. No one cares about bench.
No one cares about bench. Anyway, bench is going really well. Everything's going really well. I'm good. I like being this body weight. I remember Andrew's talked a lot about how he expected when he got to a certain body weight, like 100 or like 110, you're going to be like a bowling ball. Yeah. But I looked at myself this morning in the mirror. I was like, I have so much room to put on weight. Like, and although I feel great, I could see myself getting bigger. Yes, my waistline is getting bigger. Yes, I could see the extra body fat, but my lifts are getting bigger, and so is everything else. And I said this messaging to someone the other day that if you can kind of push accessories so hard that you keep ahead of the body fat gain with the muscle gain, how possible that is, and it depends on your rate of your gain as well. But I feel like I have done so well enough until this point. Like I'm putting on enough muscle in my upper body and my lower body that the waistline increase is justified because I don't mind. I actually quite like how I look now.
Getting jacked.
Yeah, getting jacked. So
very good.
Yeah. You?
For myself, things are going pretty good. I was away last week. I was on holidays, so the deficit was put on pause a little bit. That's fine. We got to enjoy ourselves. Back into the routine. Was training this morning, had squats, took a lot of caffeine. So now my brain is going very fast, but my body is kind of tired after squatting. So I don't know. We'll see how this one goes. Hopefully I can maintain focus as we go through this podcast. But we're in a good spot. I weighed in at a new low body weight of 110.6 this morning, which is pretty good. So I reckon I'm going to continue it for another 2 weeks or so. Hopefully get down to like 108, 109 kind of body weight. I'm getting the rest of my tattoo finished next week. The inside of the bicep we're going to get done. It's been a long time coming. I was meant to finish that like months ago. So it'll be good to finally see that through. That'll affect training for probably 2 days, I would say. I had someone ask me recently, like, how do I kind of like alter my training based around tattoos? And I would say recently, this is not getting into the Q&A yet, by the way, this is just something I thought about right now. As of late, I'm way less precious about tattoos. I don't know about you. You also have a lot of tattoos. But in the beginning, I was like super protective of them. I thought you could not touch off them or the tattoo was going to fall off or something. Like it's going to turn green and it was just going to disappear. Whereas now, kind of when I get a tattoo, I wait like 2 days for the open wound to kind of like heal over, and then it will scab for a couple of weeks. For anyone who doesn't have tattoos, the first 2 weeks of getting a tattoo, it looks gross. It scabs over. It's like sunburn. It kind of peels and stuff. So after the initial 2 days healing, I'll just go back to the gym and train as normal, provided it's not in an area that is like going to be rubbing against stuff, or like you'd need to put equipment on, like wrist wraps or knee sleeves.
That's the thing. Like if you get a tattoo on your knee, which you have, you just
I went back to squatting after 3 days, but I didn't wear knee sleeves for a week and a half
until your skin was solid enough to put it on. Like
healed underneath.
Similarly, I'm getting my back piece finished. For anybody watching and not listening, it's like here to here. But it covers the area where the bar will go, high bar, low bar, no matter what. So what I did the last time was, I think I gave it 2 days, so I'm getting it done on a Saturday, don't train Sunday, and just push my squats from Monday to Tuesday. It depends how it feels. If it's still scabby, if it's still very raw, that's the issue. If it's raw and open then you just push it forward. But you know yourself, like you can feel it, you can see it. So yeah, I'll just wait, but looking forward to that actually. Really looking forward to that.
When's that again?
That's in a few weeks' time. It's the 9th of December. And like you said, it only affects training a little bit. Like I'll still be able to do 90% of what I'm doing. Maybe squats will be altered a little bit, but like a deload out of nowhere and happy days.
You'll be chill. Right, okay, I suppose we will get into some of these questions. Again, we're going to probably touch on a vast array of topics. Hopefully, we can go on some tangents, open up some interesting discussions.
That I don't know, that question there, why is Andrew so much better looking than Andrew? I assume.
That you meant me.
Know, that I'm better looking than Andrew, and I guess, I don't know. It doesn't matter. He still lifts more, so I just leave him with it. Like
I hate this guy. I actually hate this.
There's no need for questions.
I don't know why
like
I'm even doing this podcast. I hate
because I don't have an answer. I don't have a good answer. So.
Okay, so into the actual real questions. What has been the most challenging moment in powerlifting, and what has been your most challenging moment in powerlifting, and how did you overcome it?
First thing that comes to mind is pain experiences, injuries, times where no matter what you're doing, it seems like life is just saying, no, it's like you can do your best and it just doesn't matter. Times of frustration, which are typically surrounded around pain for me in the past. Probably those. Probably times where, I took like a month off deadlifting, came back to deadlifting and 120 hurt really bad when my 1R max was like 250. And that was really frustrating.
How did you overcome it?
How did I overcome it? I just listened to my coach a little bit more, I think. I let go of the reins. I said, okay, I'll listen to what you're saying. And I just became more open, more optimistic to the prognosis of pain development. And, he said, I think I mentioned this last time, but he suggested, do you think it's possible that a lot of this could be in your head? And I was like, no, it's not my head. You don't know my pain. But I just said, okay, maybe if I believe this will help, or maybe if I believe doing this won't hurt for a while, and I adapted my approach to pain. And since then, pain does not have as much of a hold over me,
Very good. And have you had pain experiences since that were easier to manage because of that?
It's funny that they don't come to mind, but yes, I know when I think about it, since then, there has been, every few months you run into something happens, tightness here, niggle there, and when you don't react or overcompensate, it just fades away, and you then don't remember it as significant. It's just, it fades away in your training all of a sudden. So,
I like that. For myself, the most challenging moment for me probably spanned the course of like a year, but I would say it came to a head, and I've mentioned it a few times now, European Championships 2021. Over the course of that whole year, I was making no progress. So like that whole period of training where you are trying to give everything, you're beating your body into the ground, you're feeling sore all the time, and you're not getting any better. The weights are not going up. You're even struggling with weights that you lifted a year ago. Sometimes you're getting weaker, you're regressing. That span of kind of 12 months, I would say, was quite challenging for me. And there was many times that I debated throwing in the towel. There's many times where I thought, like, this is genuinely taking more from my life than it's giving. And I had to ask myself, why am I doing this? Like, why do I feel so compelled to stick with this sport when all it's doing is making me feel bad every time I go into the gym? Now, we've discussed at length the factors that were contributing to that, how we overcame it. Basically, what I had to do was just start eating more food, getting bigger. I was not making progress because I was not allowing my body to grow. I was not building more muscle. Yeah, and then since that point, December 2021, we've been seeing linear progress since. So yeah, I've actually, to be honest, I don't think I've had a bad training session or a time where I've ever considered stopping powerlifting since then over the last 2 years, whereas it was a daily thought 2 years ago. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting period, and I'm glad to be out the other side of that now because so many experiences that I've had since have been just like so valuable and so impactful on my life, and I would have missed out on them had I thrown the towel in.
Is that 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Feels so, it's such a significant memory in my head. I really remember that, yeah.
Because it was, like, it took up so much of my life anyway, but then through that, me communicating with you almost every day, that was what our conversations were about.
COVID lockdowns as well?
Yeah, I think we were just coming out of it. That World Championships in 21 was like kind of during COVID, everything was restricted, masks, all sorts of things like that. So that actually would have played a significant role as well. I never considered that. Just everything being shut down, being very isolated. At that time, it was like winter as well. It's a lot darker, a lot colder. Extra variables I never considered.
There's a lot going on, but definitely the number one was doing everything you think you need to do, and you were
just
going
not getting
backwards.
better. And not understanding why. Like that was the most frustrating part, is like not knowing why I'm not getting better. Like thinking that I know the process that is like necessary to get better, but just it not coming together. And then realizing, okay, everything that I thought must be wrong because I'm trying to do what I understand to be the right thing, but it's not working.
Can you share a memorable experience from a powerlifting competition or training session? That's how the question is worded.
Yeah.
But I know, because we've discussed it, you have good stories from international competitions.
Yeah.
For me, I remember they're really good memories, really fond memories, but nothing crazy. Like Budapest was the most or the funniest comp I've had outside of
because we got to celebrate at the end afterwards.
Yeah.
Because more often than not, you fly in and out at these international competitions. It's just like you fly in the day before and you fly out the day after. Why do you do that?
I don't know. Up until now, that's just what I did. I didn't have any other inkling, but this time was great, where we went a few days before, a few days after.
Yeah.
That was really good. Really good.
So what I do in general before an international competition is fly in 2 or 3 days beforehand. My justification for that is kind of, I don't know, getting to a new area, I always struggle a little bit to like settle in. Like the first night of sleep is always affected, and it's just a little bit troublesome for me. So I like that, get that out of the way, and then you might have like 1 or 2 nights of just like being relaxed, being settled in before going into the competition, and then 2 or 3 days afterwards to kind of decompress and enjoy yourself. And in those 2 or 3 days afterwards is some of the fondest memories that I have within powerlifting, because you're in another country with the other lifters on the Irish team, the other lifters from the other nations, and everyone's just a degenerate for those 3 days afterwards. Like everyone has competed, everything is done, all this serious stuff. You've been prepping for weeks. So lots of people not drinking beforehand. You just kind of get to let your hair down and let loose afterwards. So honestly, after every competition, I could go into a 20-minute monologue about the things that we got up to. The one that stands out the most to me, I would say, was IPF Junior Worlds in Turkey in 2022.
Okay.
You weren't there? That was hands down the worst run competition I've ever seen in my whole life. It was diabolical.
And that's including, that's not international comps, that's just comps full stop.
Yeah, just any comp that I've been to, it was terrible. So we were told that we were like, the competition was going to be held in Istanbul. So I was telling people leading into the comp, we're going to Istanbul. Everyone's telling me Istanbul is like the nicest city ever. You've got to go see all these things. Perfect. Okay, we land in Istanbul airport, and then you're going out to get your transfer to go to the hotel where everyone is like staying and lifting. It's a 2-hour journey. We get picked up to this hotel, and we are just driving through fields, like barren fields. There's nothing around. First 20 minutes of the journey, you're in the city. You're like poking your head out the window, looking at all the cool stuff. After that, it is just nothing. We end up at this hotel in the middle of nowhere. Like there's the hotel, and there's just fields around. There's a few like goat and like sheep in the field around us. Like genuinely, when you look out your window, there's nothing. So we get there, and this is something a lot of people may not know about the competitions, is when you are staying in the like official venue, you pay like the IPF basically. They book out the hotel and you pay them for your room. But they upmark the cost of the rooms significantly. And at least they did in this circumstance. So when you're looking online and you just go on booking.com, a room in this hotel that we were staying, the king suite, literally the best room that they have, is €20 a night. The IPF were charging, I think, like €110 a night for a double room. So I'm going there, no way I'm paying that. We booked through booking.com, but if you don't book through the IPF to get the hotel, you have to pay a fine to them because you're not going through their system. So then you have to pay €100 fine. Even then, after you pay for your own accommodation and the fine, it's still cheaper. So that's all I always do for competitions. I get my own accommodation, stay in an Airbnb, pay the fine. It's always still cheaper. Recently, they've made a rule where you're not allowed to do that anymore. If you don't stay in the official venue, you are not accredited to lift at the competition. Now, I think the runaround is just book one night in the accommodation for the venue whenever you're like competing and just still stay in your own place. And it will probably work out cheaper. That's my plan anyway.
Yeah. It would just be like paying the €100 fine because the room would just be €100, yeah.
So anyway, we get to this hotel in the middle of nowhere and we go to check in and say like, can we go into our room? They say no. And we're like, okay. Do you know when we can check in? Do we have to wait to a certain time? They just like walked away, completely like stonewalled us, did not give us any more information. So we waited around for another hour, went back to the reception. Can we check in again? No. Stonewalled us. And they didn't have like any English really. Again, it's kind of like a rural part of Turkey, so maybe to be expected. Went back again with like Google Translate on my phone, showing it to them, going like, when can we check in? They like took the phone, they typed in like, I don't know, come back at 3 p.m. or something, like handed the phone and then walked away. So we waited till 3 p.m., went to check in, and we were like, yeah, we're in the King Suite. And they go, no, King Suite's not available. And I was like, well, I booked it on your website, so like, what's the story? Where are we staying? Are you going to refund us the amount for the room? So then they're like typing in the Google Translate again. They're going, no refunds. And I'm going, well, you're not giving me what I paid for. So like, how are you going to sort of reimburse us for that? They walked out. They like went into the back room and just like stayed there for 10 minutes while I'm like standing at the reception, like waiting for a bit of clarification when we can go to our room, how I'm getting refunded, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, that goes on. They say you can get the junior suite and you can get free meals while you're in the hotel. We're going, okay, that suits me. We go to our room that's meant to be the junior suite. This is like a 5-story hotel. We're just like on the second floor and it's just like a room in the middle of a hallway. It's not the junior suite at all. They just gave us a regular double room. There's no aircon in the room either. We're going like, what? This is minging. Even then, it was still way cheaper than booking through the IPF. So I was like, I don't care. We're here now. It is what it is. Also, what had been going on was other lifters were coming to the hotel to like check in and they were just being told, no, go away. You can go to a different hotel that's like 20 minutes down the road. So that was happening. Oh my God, it was an absolute disaster. There was no aircon in the hotel itself. It was like 35 degrees. It was miserable. It was stinking. It was hot. It was sweaty. There was only one like restaurant that you could go to that was like maybe a kilometer or two walk up the street. There's no paths on the street. It's just like a motorway and then like a dirt track on the side. There's like dead dogs and dead cats. It was horrible. They were like stinking, decomposing. We were like, this is by far the most horrible experience I've ever had. How have the IPF like
traveling
this?
full stop? This is the worst travel
like
experience.
Literally the worst thing. Everyone there was saying how bad it was. You book to get like food in the restaurant in the hotel. It takes like 2 hours. Someone orders a pizza. An hour later, they're like trying to grab the staff, being like, where's my pizza? Oh, it's coming, it's coming. Like 2 hours it would take to get food in the hotel. It was unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. Anyway, that was the competition itself. Minging, horrible. But the celebrations afterwards were amazing. The Irish team was all there. That was like, there was a really good crew that went to that competition. We were like sneaking into the pool after hours. Everyone was partying. That was a really good competition because it was so bad. It was like trauma bonding or something. Do you know that happens when you go through something so horrible that everyone comes together? So yeah, that stands out as like the most memorable powerlifting experience that I have. There's been other competitions that were like amazing. There was no issues whatsoever, really good nights out. But since that one was so just crazy, that one is the most significant, I would say.
How embarrassing.
I know. And what's crazier as well is the competitions are always in these really rural places. They're like off the beaten track. Like they might say they're in like a major city in some country, but it's like an hour away in the suburbs. and no one is there. The only people that are in the crowds at IPF Worlds and like Euros is the other lifters. Like, I'd say in the room, there's never more than like 30 people. And that's the pinnacle of the sport. What? That's insane to me. So that needs to change, in my opinion. If like, I don't know, powerlifting wants to go mainstream, they need to just have it in good locations. I don't know, if you look at like the silent worker meets in France, those things are packed to the rafters, or even like any competition in America. I feel like if you went to any USAPL or like Powerlifting America meet, there's going to be twice the amount of people in the crowd than there is, even at like Irish powerlifting meets. There's more of a crowd at those than there is at these internationals.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a tangent that we went on there, but that's something that I feel a lot of people may not know about how these international competitions are run, unless you have been there yourself.
Yeah, you're not turning up to the Olympic Village and going to the stadium with like thousands of people screaming for you. It's just the lifters, and you can barely get there.
Yeah.
And, you know, like Budapest. Budapest was so cool telling people I was competing in Budapest, but no, like we flew into Budapest. And you could stay in Budapest, but it was like 40 minutes up the road. Like Dublin, like you're not. There's Dublin City, and then there's like rural Dublin, not rural, but like suburban Dublin, 40 minutes away. Like there's a big difference. Like, and I wonder why. Like I wonder will we ever just see meets where if they're in France, they're in Paris. If they're in England, they're in London.
What I think is, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think it checks out. It's much cheaper to book out the accommodation and the venues in these places, and then upmarket to the lifters, which, I don't know, maybe I'm off with that assumption, but that seems to be what is happening. Like it's profiting off the lifters who make the sport what it is. Like we have to fund all of the costs ourselves. For that Turkey trip as well in Istanbul, I think that cost me like $2,500 to go to that to lift and compete. Like insane. And then to be met with that environment when we got there, it was unbelievable. I don't want to complain too much, but that is the reality of what these competitions are like. I remember even at this latest World Championships, I was talking to a Canadian lifter, and this was in Romania, so obviously that's quite a bit of travel from Canada to Romania. And he said he had spent nearly like 8,000 Canadian dollars to get there. Yeah, for the whole trip. And he said he came for when the beginning of the week started for the competition. They, in general, run 1 to 2 weeks. He booked himself to stay from the very beginning to the very end because he thought, this is World Championships. This thing is going to be huge. It's going to be massive. Everyone's going to be there. He said he was the only like lifter at some of the first few flights, like spectating. He said there was no one in the crowd. He could not believe it. It was insane. And I was like, yeah, that is the reality of these comps. And then I was asking him, I was like, was it worth it? Like, was it worth it for you to come to this competition? And he said, maybe I'm going to be like paraphrasing a little bit. He's like, since it was the first competition to say I've done it and come to a World Championships, yes, this time, but I don't know if I'd do it again. Which is like a significant thing to say when one of the best lifters in the world is saying, I don't know if I'd compete at World Championships again because it's not worth it for me, because it's so expensive to come here for what?
What would you change? What comes to mind? Everybody has their ideas as what needs to change in the IPF, but just on the things we've spoke about. You know?
I think one of the most basic things would be having it in locations that are easily accessible for spectators. You weren't at Sheffield, but being at Sheffield myself, that was insane. I don't know what the capacity of the crowd was, something like 2,000 people. That was the future of powerlifting, in my opinion. I've never seen anything like it. The support, the investment. People were flying over. I flew over to another country just to watch the meet itself. If it was in the middle of nowhere, in somewhere in Eastern Europe, would I be doing that? Probably not. So having it somewhere that's easily accessible, first and foremost, actually draw people in. Then meets like Sheffield where there's some sort of incentive. There's the background sort of videography and like the little Docu Series where you get invested in the lifter themselves because they're a character. Rather than just watching the numbers on the platform, that's very boring in my opinion. I don't even like watching a lot of powerlifting competitions just because they drag on for so long. And in a powerlifting flight that goes for like 3 hours, you might only be interested in watching 3 or 4 people. And you have to sit through whatever it is, 10 minutes of squats to get to the people you want to see. That, in my opinion, is a tough watch, a tough sell to the general public to get invested in something like that. But then you consider the sports like darts. There's things like, I don't know, F1, there's cycling, that there's huge crowds for it. So like we're doing a cool sport. We're lifting these like unfathomable weights. It should be more interesting. So I think investing more in the lifters as people. I think a lot of people have had to take that initiative themselves through like Instagram and TikTok and YouTube to try sell themselves almost to like draw investment from spectators. But if there was more support, like with SPD, sort of doing the videography and build up, that helps. Having stakes, so having like money meets. It's like, it was interesting watching Sheffield because if this person gets this lift, they earn £5,000 or whatever it is. There's something on the line. When you're watching like sports, it's someone is going to be making $1 million if they achieve whatever feat it is. That draws investment, I think. When it's just like IPF Worlds and this person is just lifting something for a bit of pride, I was like, is that as exciting? Maybe not. But then you even think about sports like GAA. For those who are not in Ireland, it's just like how would you describe GAA? It's just like
it's football. It's that version of football.
Yeah, it's like a historical Irish game. There's no money in that. But you'll fill out Crow Park with 80,000 people. Now a bit more exciting, field sport, more dynamic, more things going on. But I don't know, I feel like powerlifting should be more exciting. It's so accessible as well.
It could be exciting.
Yeah.
You know, I definitely agree with the you mentioned like a Docu Series.
Yeah.
How cool would it be if, I know we can put pressure on the lifter, right? But just imagine the idea for anybody who wanted to be involved. Nationals 2025, right? 2024 even. The top 3, top 4, top 5, whatever is feasible. I don't know. I haven't thought this through. I was talking to Ian Grant about it though, and he has loads of good ideas. I'd love to hear him discuss it, just solely his ideas. Yeah. But what he was saying was, you get the top 3, top 5 lifters who are in contention to beat one another, and record like put together like a 15-20 minute video where you follow them around for a day, record some of their training, talk to them about everything going on. Instead of them having to do it themselves. Not everybody is as technically advanced as yourself.
And
maybe
Russell Orhe,
Listis. You know, you guys are great online. Some people are shit. I'm pretty shit. You know, I could do one post, but like to really imagine a little video of me going into a comp where I'm looking to, junior nats. There's Dustin, there's Dennis Semenov, where like we all know we're competing, but no one else knows. Our coaches know, you might know, our friends know, but like, what's that? Imagine a little kind of video where each of us gets 15 minutes. It's like episode 1, Andrew, episode 1, Dustin, and we all talk about how our training's going, what we want, how
what it means to you.
Yeah, what it means to us, how we're putting together our best package, and I don't know. That's exciting. That's exciting to watch. I'd watch that for all the weight classes in Ireland. I'd even watch it for other countries. I'd watch the GB team doing that. I'd watch it everywhere. I think that'd be sick. I think that'd be so cool.
And I must note, I believe that is a direction that the USAPL Ireland will be going. So that's something to keep an eye on. I think that's something that has been discussed. I've heard stuff about. So I think the guys who are bringing USAPL to Ireland, they have this same vision. I think I've heard a lot of people compare it to like UFC, where UFC has like the best marketing ever. Now, obviously, the sport is one of the most like exciting things that you could possibly watch, with people like punching the heads off each other. That in itself is going to draw eyes. But the investment of the like embedded vlogs that they do, the whole week leading into the competition, they're following people around, showing you what they're getting up to day to day, showing you them going through their weight cut and stuff like that. You get invested in them as a person. And that, I think, is like the key to getting people more invested in the sport in general.
Definitely. Definitely, where you actually care. It's like you mentioned GAA. People care about watching their county perform, and the people that are really into it care about the specific players. It sells. Like
people sell.
People sell. People care. It could be silly to some people, but it's nice. Yeah.
All right, that was actually an interesting one. I can't even remember what the initial question was there, but
it was something to do with me being better looking than you. That's how we got here.
What advice would you give to beginners just starting their powerlifting journey?
I'd probably listen to 2 Andrews from Barbell episode 2. It's probably what I would do first.
Yes.
Yeah. Get a coach.
Yeah.
If you're in a position aesthetically and body fat wise where you can gain some weight, get bulking. And probably a coach, number 1.
Yeah? Get a coach?
Yeah.
I like that. What do you think about people who are like quite young getting into the sport and may not be able to afford a coach?
Talk to people involved. Like, imagine a young lad texts you and was like, asked that same question. You know, what could I do? I can't afford a coach, but...
That actually happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I always I love that, because I love seeing someone like, I don't know, being a bit of a go-getter. Like, it's a 16-year-old kid just asking, what should I do? How can you twist that? This guy, I can't believe this guy.
I didn't twist anything. You just go, I love when 16-year-olds text me. It's like, my DMs aren't full of 16-year-old boys. I swear.
Whatever. Okay. So anyway, like a kid of an appropriate age.
Word it differently.
I don't know. There's
young
no
man.
way I can word this that this guy is not.
Young man looks for advice.
Yeah, young man looking to get into powerlifting. What can I do, or what would you recommend doing for me to like see the most amount of progress possible? And then I give them whatever advice that I can. Hopefully they take it on board, and then we'll start seeing progress. That actually happened with a young lifter who was on your team, who was seeing like massive progress now. I don't know, he's like 18, 19, has pulled over 300, but he replied to one of my stories recently, and we saw in the chat like 3 years ago, he had messaged me asking for advice, and he was like, oh damn, I don't even remember sending that message. But that was really cool to see someone who had messaged years ago now like realizing that potential. So yeah, I would say talk to people in that scenario. There's tons of like free programs online. From myself, leading into my first powerlifting competition, I was running a template program online. I had done 5-3-1 like 9 times over, like 9 months in a row. Just run it, test your max, run it, test your max. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. It's not the smartest thing to do, but it worked. If you can afford a coach, definitely I would say get a coach. That will fast track your progress more than anything else, I would say. One thing I would say is try to have fun. Like, see if you actually enjoy the sport first, if you enjoy the process of training before you're looking at results for competitions or records or the Irish team standards. Just do 1, 2, 3 competitions. See if you actually enjoy it. Like, if it's something that you think you could commit to before you're online and like starting beef with people because you're going to take their records. I've had people messaging me that as well, being like, I'm going to take your sub-junior 93 squat record. And I like look on their page and they've never competed before. And I'm like, okay, like, oh, what's going on? So yeah, try have fun. Just enjoy the process initially. It takes a long time to get strong. Like you can't really fast track it in a sense. It's just going to take years and years and years and years of showing up to get to a stage where you're quite good. Whereas I have lifters, some that even like work with me or some that have just like messaged me who are like, yeah, maybe I'll do my first competition after I pull 300. And I'm like, oh my God, what sort of like
you might never compete.
Crazy standards have you got in your head? How has it got to the stage where a 17-year-old guy thinks that he needs to be pulling 300 before he can step on the platform? That's obscene. I didn't pull 300 until I'd done like, I don't know, 5 competitions. I'd competed internationally multiple times. Yeah, there's some crazy standards out there. Don't fall into that. Just enjoy it. Yeah, get a coach. I think the main thing for me, I would say, is just have fun.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun and get a coach and listen to our episode 2.
Right. How do you handle mental or physical burnout in powerlifting?
So, I guess we need to define burnout.
Yeah.
Right? Like what is that to us?
What is it to us? I think in a general sense, with powerlifting, it is a sport where we see a lot of people stay in it for 2, maybe 3 years and then drop out. Would you classify that as like burnout?
Burnout, yeah. Or maybe, yeah.
Yeah, obviously some people come in and then maybe they find out that it's not for them. It's, I don't know, too much of a commitment or things like that. I think I often see people come into the sport, have these unrealistic expectations, run themselves into the ground, have a few periods of not seeing progress or being plateaued. And then from that, the stress that can come along with those experiences, just say, you know what, this is not for me, this is not worth it. Like I was saying earlier, that I had tons of times where I was like, why do I do this sport? I would consider that to have been a point of burnout perhaps, but I don't know what it was that prevented me from actually throwing in the towel. I think it's just when you feel like overwhelming negative emotions towards powerlifting. Maybe you could just
from expectations being out of line with reality.
Yeah.
That's always such a salient thing with my clients, or even per lift, is like when you expect something to move a certain way and it moves a different way, and you don't like it. Whereas instead, if you expect something to move slowly, or you expect it to feel difficult, and it is difficult, you're fine. It's like, cool, that was a good lift. And so when people are expecting to make X amount of progress or to hit X number, and they don't, and they cannot fall out of that trap where they're stuck constantly chasing, say, a 300 deadlift when they're at a 250 deadlift. The next milestone is like 260, maybe even 255. And it's like...
And the whole time they're convincing themselves that they're not good enough or they're a failure because they're not at this...
Because they're not getting closer to 300, where the closer they get to 260, the closer they get to 300. And I think the expectations of how fast one can progress... You know what comes to mind, actually, is the online presence of powerlifting, and what people see about powerlifting is usually the people making the most progress the quickest. Because that's what comes up on your feed. The strongest people come up on your feed. Not the people making realistic or the most average progress. It's the people, like, I know the videos of mine that get the most clicks are the biggest PBs, but it's like I didn't post every other average set that I did running up to it, like, and that can be difficult. We've been in it so long, we have a more accurate representation of what it looks like to be in powerlifting. But for someone, burnout doesn't have to be at the start of their career. It doesn't mean they're only 2 years in. It could be 10 years in, but what they're consuming and what they're seeing as reality or expecting to be reality is, oh, well, you know, Andrew Blackwood just put on, you know, 60 kilos, 70 kilos onto his total in the last year, so I'm going to do that. And without a more in-depth understanding of where these things happen, come from, why they might not be happening, it can be incredibly frustrating. Like we were saying earlier, where the most frustrating times we've had in powerlifting are where you're putting in what you see as everything you need to make things happen and nothing's happening. And so, I think that's where burnout comes from.
Do you know, I don't know if this is like exactly related to this topic, but I thought of it as you were talking. There is quite a common thing where people are like incredibly self-deprecating in powerlifting, where they will do like an objectively perfectly good set or rep or whatever and come out of it and go, that was so shit, I'm so bad, I suck, my bench is the worst ever, I'm terrible, I'm an awful human being. Why is that a thing? I never could wrap my head around that. Why are you making yourself feel bad about something that is objectively fine? I assume there's a lot of psychology things going on there that I'm not qualified to touch on, but I used to do that quite a lot myself. And I don't know necessarily what was the exact point that I stopped doing that, but I realized, like, if I am constantly telling myself that I'm terrible, that's going to be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I'm going to feel terrible all the time. I actually do think I remember a point where it was during lockdown in Australia. I was training on the wooden rack underneath our little villa. And obviously these are not ideal circumstances to be training in. It was cold at the time, a wooden rack, it was all sorts of weirdness going on. But I would do a set, and no matter how the set felt, I would tell myself out loud, that was a great set. And afterwards I go, you know, it was kind of like a good set. And then I would do that for the next set. It didn't matter if it felt amazing or it felt like average or it felt actually kind of bad. I would just tell myself, that was a good set, good work, go again. And like the act of saying out loud something positive then started to foster those positive thoughts about myself. And then I started continuing that. Now I don't necessarily have to say it out loud every time that I train, but that's something that I will do. And in the beginning I was like, it's like fake it till you make it a little bit. It's almost trying to be a bit delusional to coax myself into feeling good when I'm training. And that has actually helped quite a lot. And that's something that I try to continue into my training even now, is building myself up, trying to look for things to take confidence from rather than tearing myself down. If in your own head you're your biggest hater, how can you expect to be successful? You need to be like supporting yourself, backing yourself, looking for things to build yourself up on. If like a single doesn't move exactly the way that you want it to, look for positives that you can take from it rather than every little negative thing to bring yourself down. Touches on a little bit as well, the over-analysis of like technical details in your lifts. If you go looking for problems and inefficiencies, you'll probably find them. Do you need to do that? No. Look for things to feel good about. And then you'll foster that positive momentum going forward. So I think if you adopt a more positive mindset, and even in a sense, fake it. If you don't necessarily think that initially, fake it, and it will start to snowball until you do have those emotions. Because for the last 2 years, I've just felt amazing within training. I've not had a bad session because the way that I just frame it is to look for the good things. And since then, I've loved powerlifting, I've loved training, I've looked for all the ways that it adds to my life. So yeah, I would say that could be a useful tool against burnout, perhaps.
We can only do our best.
Yeah.
You can only ever do your best.
Yeah.
So when you start to appreciate you doing your best, instead of looking for something very objective and removing the fact that you're just a person and not your computer, not your phone. Like, you know, you're not a calculator. When you put in something, something else comes out. It's like life is very tricky, and there's a lot of things, there's a million and one things that affect how a lift looks, goes, feels. But if you yourself are just doing your best, if you just give it your best shot, if you give your nutrition your best shot, sleep your best shot, try to avoid stress, try to manage things, turn up to training, do your best.
Yeah.
Why would I be mad at myself? Why would I be mad at that? Why would I be mad that I'm doing my best? Little bit of care for yourself. People like that just love beating themselves down. Just be nice to yourself.
Yeah, that's a massive thing. That was actually one of my mantras, like leading into internationals over the last like couple of years. Is like I used to have all these pressures, like self-imposed pressures, to like hit certain numbers and placings and whatever. And then, I don't really know the exact turning point, but I was like, okay, I don't necessarily have control over those things. All I control is my effort and trying my best. If I can say that I've done that, perfect. I've ticked all the boxes, then I'm happy. That was a success then. It's not like the whole prep and the competition in the last 6 months was a failure based on the number itself. My determining factor for success was, did I give all the effort that I could have? And if I can answer that truthfully, yes, then perfect. I've done everything. And then I'm happy and training goes amazing. And more often than not from that, I've seen huge total PBs and all the good stuff has come along with it. But I think that like foundational mindset, trying your best, not beating yourself up, looking for the positives, can't go wrong.
It's not to say that objective goals don't have their place, where there was a point where I was trying to remove them from my life as much as possible, not care about the number on the bar. And there are times where that's important to do too. But say this year coming, we've talked about it time and time again, is big year for both of us, final junior year. There are numbers I want to hit and there are things I want to do. That's okay. But what's at the forefront of all of that, like my defense against disappointment in myself, is that I'm going to do my best to hit all these goals that I have in front of me.
Yeah.
But as long as I'm stood either at the top of the podium or watching the 3 lads get their medals at my last competition, as long as I'm stood there going, I did my best over the last year, how could I be mad at myself?
Yeah.
You can't. It's okay to be disappointed with the tangible result, whether it's the medal colour or the number on the bar. It's okay to say, oh, I wanted more, but I did my best. So how could I be mad at myself? You can't be mad at yourself for doing your best. How could you?
And that expands into all areas of life. That's not just powerlifting, of course.
Do your best.
All right. That was a good one. I like that. How can powerlifters give back to the community and support newcomers? That's an interesting one. I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to call myself out on this. I think first and foremost, helping out with competitions. Like spotting and loading, refereeing, which I don't do enough of. But my excuse now is I'm going to be coaching. But I still need to, I do need to call myself out on that, because I know I'm conscious of that when competitions roll around, that I could be doing more and I should be doing more. So maybe this is my like public pledging that I'm going to help out more competitions. This weekend, I'm helping spotting and load at the Docu Series meet. So that's a step in the right direction. Obviously, coaching is another way to do that. That's a very hands-on way. You are, oh my goodness. You are like shaping individuals. Like you have a very hands-on effect on someone who is like getting stronger, affecting like lifestyle variables for them. That is like a massive emphasis in my own coaching. It goes far beyond just like numbers in a spreadsheet, like sleep, nutrition, just general mindset. So coaching would be one thing. I think just being nice. that'd be one thing when you're at powerlifting competitions, just being welcoming, being friendly, being open to newcomers, people doing their first competition. I think that's something that powerlifting does quite well anyway. Like it's a super welcoming sport. Everyone's very friendly, I think. What do you think? How can we give back to the community?
Of course, spotting and loading, and I also don't do a lot of spotting and loading. I feel like I'm always coaching and handling, but I'm sure maybe next year I'll do my best to try find a flight where I'm not coaching, I'm not handling, and I can just, you could MC, you could do something. If you don't want to spot and load, you could MC, you could do the desk. There's all sorts of important stuff, and all the people that do that consistently are amazing.
Shout out to them.
Shout out to them. Making things as easy as possible for your fellow community members is kind of a good way to capture it. So even if that's, if you're in the gym, load their bar, take a plate off. Like it's simple shit that, when someone does it for you, you feel class. Because it's like, oh, they are looking at me and they care about me, even in the slightest way. So I guess carrying that idea through is...
I think another thing in general, and maybe just expands again to life, is just like, again, be nice. Just be supportive of other people in the community. Be like uplifting. Don't tear people down. Don't talk bad about people. We're all in the same kind of like niche sport. Having beef, having arguments, having any sort of that, I don't think there's any place for it. I don't think it's necessary. Just be nice. Be a good person. Be sound. I think that's probably quite important.
100%. This fed into another question because I was looking at we have a list of questions here for the Q&As. It was surrounding like communities and training with people versus training alone. So, because then I was saying like load people's bars and stuff. Training with people is very fun because you're like kind of doing things together. It seems very streamlined. You're changing the rack heights together. You can chat about things. What's your take on training alone versus training with people? Because you've done a fair bit of both.
It's very interesting for me because I have gone through phases of training in a home gym, training in a powerlifting gym, training in a regular commercial gym. I've had everything, and to be honest, I like aspects of all of it. When I first got the home gym and I was training by myself, I loved it because I had like space. I had my own area where I could be as neurotic as I wanted. I could experiment with as many things as I wanted. I didn't feel like I was hogging equipment. I had like the best equipment that I could need. I had like Eleiko, everything. I loved that. And that was like a great time. I saw a ton of progress. But after a while of training by yourself, there was definitely some negatives that started to creep in. There's a lot of complacency, lack of motivation to go train by yourself when it's cold outside. It's just you, like you're literally just looking at the four walls around you. Like it can be quite difficult to motivate yourself or like to get into the gym. And even if you do get into the gym, to bring the same intent, bring the same energy. So I found that to be quite difficult. Then I went back to a powerlifting gym again. And I was like, this is amazing. There's energy around me. There's other strong lifters. And I don't know, I read something before about some psychology thing. When there's other people around, there's like something that happens when there's a crowd that evokes more arousal from you.
That's me every day. In college, I'm just writing, I'm like, some psychology thing. Go on, sorry.
But yeah, some sort of like crowd arousal. When there's other people around watching you, you are just at a higher state of energy. I definitely found that was happening. And my training sessions were better. I had people to spot and load for me. Obviously not me standing back and saying like load my bar, but like helping, like you said, putting a plate on here, there. That was amazing. I love that. And now I'm in like a semi-powerlifting, semi-commercial gym at the moment that has like a little bit of a powerlifting area, but it's been interesting because it's quite divided. It's not like a club. It's very much like a commercial gym still. There's only like 4 or 5 racks. And then I'll come in sometimes when it's like busier and there'll be like 5 people benching on separate combo racks. Oh. I'm like, it's a little bit weird because typically in a powerlifting gym, you'd all just work in on the one rack. So yeah, I've had experience in many different environments and there's pros and cons to all of them. I don't know if I could possibly say there's one that I prefer. I like having the ability to dip in and out of them depending on what phase of training I'm in. I don't even know if I answered anything to do with that question. I just kind of rambled.
The answer is exploring your thoughts. We don't have an answer. This isn't like an info episode. This is just like us thinking about things. There is definitely pros to both, cons to both. and it matters what you're doing and when you're training. I also think it matters what you're doing outside of training as well. We're only talking about hobbies outside of lifting, because we do forget sometimes where we're so surrounded, you go train, then you text me, and then you do the podcast work, and then you post on Instagram, and then you talk to your clients. It's like sometimes we're just constantly surrounded by powerlifting until all of a sudden, oh my God, there's so much else going on in my life. Right now I'm so busy with college. There's so many things going on. And it depends then too. Sometimes all I want to do is train with my friends. Sometimes all I want to do is organize a session with you, organize a session with Cal, and do all these things throughout the week. And then sometimes I just need to get to the gym that's closest to me, get my session done without people talking to me, and then go home so I can continue on with whatever I'm doing. And that's okay as well. Just definitely look at the pros of both and, take from both what you can, It doesn't mean one is definitely better than the other.
One thing to note, for my accessories, training with someone else is by far 100 times better than me training by myself, I find. Now being in like a commercial gym again, they have a ton of machines, accessory equipment. I've been doing like occasional sessions training with someone else, and I've found I can push myself 10 times harder than I can when I'm by myself. It's like you unlock an extra gear that you didn't know was there, and it doesn't even take that much additional motivation from the other person there. It's almost just their presence of them saying 2 more reps. And you're going, you know what, I can do 2 more reps. And then you pump out 2 more and you realize, you know what, I actually have another little bit, and you're pushing all the way to failure. It's something that I struggle to replicate when I'm by myself for my accessory work. So I would imagine that also expands into powerlifting specific work as well, having a support network of people that believe in you, they're hyping you up, they want the best for you. I find that always helps quite a lot. So yeah, look for the positives in all of those environments. I think it's good that I have the ability to go between a home gym and a commercial gym. But even if you have to train just like in a fly fit or something, like a just branch chain gym that is like terrible, it's not like associated with powerlifting whatsoever, you can still find positives in that. Again, it comes back to just look for the things to feel good about, to take confidence from.
Yeah.
Do you have another question?
I want to go to another question.
Yeah, go on.
Do you have any that you want to get in for?
Nah, you go. There's a billion questions.
All right. Mobility work.
Oh, yes. What is the question itself, or is there one there that is framed?
How important is foam rolling and mobility work in injury prevention?
Oh, that touches on many topics there. Okay, how important is foam rolling and mobility work for powerlifting in general, but then for injury prevention? Oh, baby. Okay. How important is foam rolling? Waste of time.
I feel like that has faded away itself. I feel like I see less and less people doing that.
Yeah. So I think in general, just to give a little bit more context to that, as far as I know, foam rolling promotes that, like it, I don't know, breaks up the tissues or something. And I don't even know what it really says it does. It's something about breaking up scar tissue and stuff like that. Basically, I don't think that really happens at all. What I understand foam rolling does is like, in an acute sense, like increase your almost like pain tolerance to like a certain area, so you may be able to access a bit more range of motion in whatever given joint in the short term. It's not going to do anything that is substantial long term. Now, if you do it and it feels good for you, and in the short term you feel like you can access a bit more range of motion, then you go to like a competition lift and you squat and you have more range of motion. I think that may be beneficial, because I think the squat itself will be all the mobility work that you need. Now, maybe I jumped the gun a little bit on the mobility topic, but foam rolling itself, I would say if you do it and you think it feels good, okay, whatever, you do you, but probably things you can spend your time on that will yield better results. Mobility work outside of the gym, I think a lot of people maybe think of that as like static stretching or even dynamic stretching. That also, waste of time, I would say. In my humble opinion, and now I don't know everything and whatever, let me just preface with that, I think the competition lifts themselves and maybe some like other accessory movements, I think just training in the gym is all of the mobility work that you need. You will be like lengthening your muscles under load, accessing like full range of motion. Say if you squat as low as you can go, that's probably the best thing that will help with your squat mobility, for example. I know for myself, I fell victim to the ankle mobility drills, thinking that I had poor ankle mobility. I bought squat shoes. I used squat shoes for years, thinking that it was a Band-Aid for my poor ankle mobility. I was doing ankle mobility drills for half an hour every day. My ankles never got more mobile. It was the biggest waste of time that I've ever had. Fuck ankle mobility drills, right? I'm going to just plant that flag. If you're doing ankle mobility drills, stop it right now. It was such a waste of time. Do you know what helped my squat the most? Like my squat test was just sitting in a squat. That by far helped my squat more than anything else. And now I'm squatting flats and my squat is way better than it was before. Technically, how comfortable it is. Squat was always the one that was most uncomfortable for me. I just dreaded it every time I was going to the gym. And that was actually a big source of stress for me leading into competitions, because I could never rely on my squat. I could never rely on the depth. It just never felt controlled. It always felt like I was just winging it. I was just trying to dive bomb it and somehow stand back up. And then what I started doing, the exact thing that I started doing was just sitting in the bottom of a squat for 5 minutes a day for a short period of time. And the approach that I took is I couldn't do that initially. I couldn't sit there for 5 minutes. So I would do as long as I could before I had to take a break. It might have been 30 seconds. And then just keep doing those whip breaks until it amounted to 5 minutes total. And then just that exposure to more time in that range, being as low as I could be in a squat, helped more than anything else. So I would say specific mobility stuff, probably not necessary. Just train through a full range of motion and you'll be sweet.
Sounds like you did a bit of mobility work though.
Yeah.
It's interesting, right? I think, touching on the foam rolling, in what we typically see, like you said, what comes to mind for most people when they think mobility is the drills that people do, often on the floor, not just on the floor, but there's just a bunch of stuff that doesn't look specific to a squat, bench and deadlift. Let's say that. That's kind of the overarching thing here, is foam rolling and the typical mobility drills are not specific to powerlifting movements. And so what I'd say is, yes, those things, those typical things, you could probably forget about them, right? There's a middle ground where if something feels good physically and more importantly psychologically, and it feels like it gets you ready to lift, as long as, and this is the line, as long as you're not doing any harm with it and you have the 2 minutes to do it, I'm not going to argue with you and say you have to stop, right? I do some things before I squat that I know my coach would laugh at and laughs at when I do it, but then on meet day when I'm doing it, he doesn't say a thing because it gets me psychologically ready to squat. And that's okay. As long as he doesn't turn around and I'm doing a 1 rep max deadlift to warm up for my squat, he's okay. And as long as I'm not doing some mobility drills that are genuinely taxing, then okay.
I think that's a big thing that you touched on there. If you believe something is going to be beneficial for you and it's going to help you, it probably will, because you believe that it will, and then you have that mindset when you approach it, and biopsychosocial model, all that stuff again. If you like something, by all means go ahead. That's why I don't like having super hard opinions on pretty much anything. Bro, why do you have to twist? Oh, come on. Anyway, I don't like having, I can't even think of another word now. I don't have throbbing opinions. Anyway, I don't like having fixed opinions on anything because there's a lot of nuance, and more often than not, like you said, if you feel like something works for you, by all means, go ahead. I'm not going to argue with you, and I think from a coaching perspective, that can do way more harm than good. If someone has this belief ingrained from their own experiences and you as a coach come at them and say, you know what, that's stupid, you shouldn't do that. They're going, hey, hang on, fuck this guy, what do you mean? I do it and it makes me feel better, so how can you tell me that it doesn't work? I think that's definitely something to be cautious of from a coaching perspective. But hopefully anyone listening, if you are doing tons of foam rolling or mobility drills, maybe your time could be better spent elsewhere. Something to consider. You don't have to listen to us by any means. Who am I? I'm just a guy. But yeah, have a think.
It did mention injury prevention.
Oh,
and I'll say that
it
does kind of expand into that.
Yeah.
You obviously have an idea there that you want to pop out. I don't have anything in particular other than similarly to just accessing the ranges. I think you don't need to do all these mobility things that you think you might need to do. Exposure to the movement itself is usually the best thing, or a similar movement like that Andrew felt just sitting in a squat helped him get into a squat better. Maybe before a deadlift you might do some single leg RDLs, something like this, just to feel the movement pattern and kind of contract the musculature that are going to be involved. It can feel nice. I do the same thing.
For me, that would almost touch on another thing of activation drills. Have you heard there's all sorts of controversy about them as well? Do you need to do activation drills, warm-ups, blah, blah, blah? Do you just get under the bar? I cut you off there to bring that up. But yeah, I would say my understanding of mobility would be outside of the gym. So maybe you could do it before training in your warm up. Do you need to do activation drills? Do you need to wake up your glutes before you squat?
To prevent injury.
Yeah. Do you have glute amnesia?
Yeah, I'm gonna say no.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
I'm gonna say no. I think you're probably fine just getting away with just squatting, if that's okay with you. When I think of my pain experiences or other pain experiences and how we described stress and stress management in the last episode, it is just a matter of stress management. I'm not totally against, if someone wants to do some hip thrusts and it makes their hips feel good before they do lifts, or there's an exercise that helps alleviate some pain, that's okay as well. But pain experiences tend to be a product or a function of how you're managing stress. And as the stress comes down, pain tends to follow. Sure, there's a delay period. There can be a lag period where, I've started deloading, but my glute is still a little bit sore. Just give it a chance, and then reintroduce exposure to a movement as we said you could. But I don't think, and I think people kind of fall into this trap where they reduce stress and add exercises like mobility exercises, and then attribute the improvement or decrease in pain to the addition of exercises when they're ignoring the forest for the trees, which is the fact that they reduce stress. In pulling back on squat, they've just pulled like 100% of the stress off their knee. So sure, I'm not saying that the 10-second lunge with your hands like behind your ears or whatever doesn't feel nice, but you just gave your knee a chance to recover from the squat. And I think that's the main thing. Yeah. That's usually what you need to do.
100%. Is there an ideal choice of footwear for powerlifting?
Andrew likes wearing these shoes everywhere he goes, man. Yeah, what are they called?
Vivo barefoot shoes.
Yeah.
I need a sponsorship off these fellas.
I don't wear them.
Yeah.
I like to wear slippers for bench and deads. I wear Converse for squats just because I've come to enjoy squatting in Converse from years ago. Sometimes I squat in slippers if I don't have them. That's it.
Yeah. I've bought, I'd say upwards of like 10 different shoes for powerlifting. I bought like squat specific shoes, like deadlift slippers, all different types. And what I use now is Vivo barefoot shoes for all 3 lifts. Now, I don't think there's anything magic about them. I like them because they have quite a thin sole and you can take the insole out. I think the sole is like 2 millimeters or something, super thin. So you just have like relatively good force production or force transfer. You don't have a big squishy sole like you would on an Air Max or something. So I like that aspect. I also like that they have a pretty wide toe box. It just feels pretty comfortable for my feet rather than some other shoes that I've had, whether it's deadlift slippers or other like deadlift shoes or even squat shoes. I just find that they feel like a little bit restrictive. So I like these just because it just almost feels like I'm not wearing shoes, which is just kind of a nice feeling I've found. So yeah, that's why I wear Vivo barefoot shoes, but wear whatever you like. There's people who squat in Jordans and they squat like 350 kilos. Like it's not going to make a major difference, I would say. Find something that feels comfortable for you and run with that.
I kind of want to try those like wrestling shoes for squat.
Yeah.
You know them?
Yeah. I've had a pair of them. Didn't like them.
For no reason other than they just look kind of cool sometimes. Socks or no socks?
What? What do you mean? Like in your shoes? Like
do you wear socks or no socks?
Do you wear shoes without socks? Are you actually kidding me?
Like is it better with socks or no socks?
Yeah, I do in the summer.
You will wear shoes with no socks?
No. No.
I feel like maybe he's asking me a different question.
Maybe I am, but yeah, whatever.
You will wear shoes with no socks? Oh my God. Do you know what I would love? In Australia, they will just walk around with like no socks and no shoes.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. I think that is like the most comfortable. But it's like hot over there. It's socially acceptable. It's like normal to get the dogs out. So like I would do that if I could. There's no chance you could do that here, like.
So Andrew has been doing really well. He hasn't brought up feet in like 2 hours. but here we are.
What?
He's bringing up feet, but he's been doing really well. And that was like a minor occurrence as well. Normally it's way worse.
I actually hate this guy. You know what? This is the last podcast. This is actually the last podcast. I hate this guy. Oh. Let me get another question so we can.
So you can't even think straight.
So we can swiftly move on from that nonsense, man.
Feet. Yeah.
How can you improve grip strength for deadlifts? Because I know you drop your deadlifts all the time because you have terrible weak bitch hands. How about that?
He's getting defensive with the feet. How do you improve grip strength? Okay, there's actually a few things here, and something new actually for us.
Also, just to cut off, I've dropped deadlifts in numerous competitions.
Oh
by the way.
yeah, it's part of powerlifting, right? So firstly, I'm going to say that I actually haven't trained grip too directly for too long of a time. I think the easiest go-to answer for grip is just like maybe limit the use of straps. Yeah. So it depends on the grip you're using for deadlifts. Let's just say you're a mixed grip puller and you've dropped a few deadlifts, right? Here's some things that come to mind. Do your back accessories and pulling accessories with bare hands, you know. Do your deadlifts with bare hands, don't strap up. If you're mixed gripping, just use your bare hands. Chalk up, right? Use a sharp bar, not using like a soft bar, use the grippiest bar you can, okay? Secondly is a pumice stone. I didn't know what this was until Andrew got one recently, and I got it. And you basically just shave down, it's like a file for your calluses. I think it's for feet.
Bro!
It is, so I don't know where he was shopping. He was like feet products, but he found this thing and it works really well because I think a lot of the time your calluses, as they overgrow, like at first they're adaptive, right? Because they're making your skin resistant to tear, but then as they overgrow, they just become maladaptive. And so filing them down after a shower has helped a lot, I think. I find myself, and Andrew's found this as well. Was it Worlds that you just about held on to your third pull? Yeah. And then this time, you know, you had your thumbs filed down, you're holding on to that third pull forever. Yeah. So a pumice stone is one thing. And then another thing, something I'd never considered until Grandmaster Adam said it to me before Junior Nationals. I dropped on my last deadlift session, I tried to pull 270 twice and failed twice, pretty much on grip. Obviously it was a difficult pull, full stop, but grip, I couldn't hold on anymore to grind through. And he said, oh man, don't worry about it. You've been doing loads of bodybuilding accessories, you'll be fine. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, you know, if we're considering all sorts of fatigue, you are carrying fatigue in your forearms. And I was like, whatever. I pulled 280 and it wasn't slipping out of my hands for the first time ever, because you have like a week or two. It's up to you how you drop your stress for accessory movements, but generally I'll like start to pull my clients' accessories out. That block will kind of be reduced anyway going into comp, and then like 2 weeks out they'll probably have like none. And then I did that, and not that you have a test for your grip stress, but I held onto the bar. So it's like I was just carrying an abundance of fatigue on top of all these other things in my forearms, and then I held onto the bar.
There we go. Yeah, I would say for improving grip strength, my go-to that I've like seen work the best is just like long holds at the top of your last rep on if you're doing like working sets, or if you're doing singles, just hold it for 5-6 seconds. I think that's probably the most specific thing that you can do if you're doing like heavy singles, holding it. Outside of that, you could maybe do like heavy holds, but I wouldn't go out of the way. I would just add it on to whatever deadlift work that you're already doing. And then the hand care stuff has been massive for me. Using hook grip, I would often have my like thumbs tear. And at World Championships this year, massive callus tear on my thumb, just about held on to get the down command, but it was rough. So it was from that tear that I was like, okay, I need to look into this. Another lifter had actually recommended using a pumice stone. So what I do now, and this has been like a godsend for like my grip for deadlifts, is I will clip my calluses down. So if they're getting like too thick, there's more of them to be pulled, and that's where you're gonna get tears and stuff like that. So just like clipping them down with like a nail clipper so that they're pretty much level with your skin, your normal skin, and then using a pumice stone on top of that after a shower, when your hands are a little bit softer, you just grind away any of the excess skin there, just so it's like a smooth surface in your hand. You don't have these massive ridges and calluses and bumps. And like, it has been totally different for deadlifts. So yeah, if you don't do that, start looking after your hands and should make a pretty big difference.
It's like €2, €3 for a pumice stone.
So easy.
It's accessible.
What strategies can aid in reducing soreness and recovery times between sessions?
First and foremost, 90% of it is just going to be stress management. If you do a really difficult session, you're going to be sore. When you add in lower body accessories again, when you haven't done them in a while, your quads and hams and glutes and low back, they're going to be fried. That's okay. If you're always sore, always overstressed, don't miss the forest for the trees. The Epsom salt bath isn't going to make up for the fact that you're just training too hard. So that's first and foremost. Just, you probably shouldn't be overly sore. Is the answer. Where you are sore, I think that is my answer. I don't even want to say any strategies to reduce soreness. If you're too sore, you're probably training too
Take a
hard.
look at your training. That's a massive thing as well. Is it's a real like powerlifter thing to be beat up and sore and oh man, and my joints hurt and stuff like that. That shouldn't be the case.
No.
Like if that is the case and you're sore all the time, well, take a look at your training. Like you should probably not feel like that. I would say for the vast majority of my training, I just feel good. Maybe after like week 4, you've got a bit more fatigue. Just shake it off the week after, and then you feel good again, and then you get back to productive training. Now, obviously, there'll be times where you have to drag your heels a little bit, and training is going to be tough, and you're not going to feel fresh as a daisy to like the end of a comp peak, like where you've done all this heavy training. But like in general, you should not feel terrible all the time. And if you are feeling terrible, you need to take a look at your training.
Look at your training, or like there are times in your life where you might sleep a little bit less.
Yeah.
You might be more stressed out, or you could be, you know, your diet might be more difficult to manage. That's okay too. And just when we say take a look at those things, doesn't mean like you're shit, fix yourself. It's just like, you know, consider those things.
Yeah.
And then maybe take a look at your training and see, are you doing too much for what life is allowing you to handle right now as well? That's not to say that you're always training too hard. Could just mean you're training too hard given the circumstances of the other things.
That was good. That was a good point. Yeah, so I'd say the main rocks for recovery are going to be sleep, nutrition, making sure you're getting in enough calories first and foremost, and then enough protein from there. Then overall stress management. But stress also outside of the gym. It's not necessarily like the physical stress of the training that you're doing, like any sort of mental, psychological stress from work, from school, from relationships, from anything like that. That all has a toll. Like it's all going to add up. And it's hard to quantify that. So oftentimes it gets a little bit neglected. You don't think about it, but it plays a massive role. So if you can be somewhat aware of all those variables, for me, I track all of those. Like I have a sheet. I do the same for my lifters, just so if training is seeing like a downtrend, we can objectively compare it to the variables that we're seeing at the moment. If the variables can't change, if it's a case where someone's sleeping 6 hours a night and for whatever reason that can't change, that would be like the first port of call to see, okay, what areas could we potentially improve sleep or improve whatever other rock of recovery. If that can't change, then you look at the training stress itself. Okay, what can we reduce here to make it more feasible for this person to recover, I would say.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Right. We've been going for a while. I wonder how long we're on. We'll answer maybe one or two more. How do you manage nutrition during a cutting phase to maintain strength? Now, you've gone through a few cuts.
Didn't maintain strength. So don't look at me. How are Andrew's currently in a deficit?
Yeah. So what am I doing in my training to try and maintain strength? I think first and foremost, we need like context to the question, because it depends. What is the objective with your deficit? How much weight are you losing? If you're going to be losing 10 kilos, 20 kilos, or even if we compare that to like a percentage of your body weight, like a significant percentage of your body weight, the further like amount that you lose, the more impact that's going to have on your strength. The likelihood is you're probably going to lose some. You're in like a catabolic state, like you're not giving your body enough energy or the energy that it needs. So it's important to like frame your expectations based on that. Don't expect to add 50 kilos to your total if you're in a 500 calorie deficit every day. So that initially, what I'm doing myself is the training that I'm doing is relatively unspecific. Is that a word?
Non-specific?
I'm doing like tempo beltless squats. I don't have a frame of reference for that necessarily for how strong I should be. So I don't feel the pressure to like push the weights as much. I'm not trying to compare to my best singles ever or like my best set of 5. It's something that's totally different. It's somewhat of like a novel stimulus, but it's still close enough that I'm maintaining the skills of like the competition lift. So that has been helpful. That's reduced some of the like psychological stress of being in the deficit because I don't actually know if I'm losing strength. I would imagine as the weeks are going on and I'm under fueling myself, part of the reason that I would underperform, say, is just because the lack of energy, like the lack of carbs in your system to like go bring that intent to your training session. Since my cut is relatively short, I would say as soon as I reintroduce food, I probably shouldn't have lost much strength, if anything. I would say if you can maintain as much muscle mass as possible, that will probably be the best case scenario, to maintaining as much strength as you can. How do you maintain muscle mass? I would say try to continue to provide a stimulus to your muscles so that your body has a reason to hold on to them. If you're not doing any accessory work and you're going into a deficit, your body's just going to like break down the muscle. It's going to go, this is like inefficient mass for us to have. Let's break this down, and then instead of having to break down fat. So give your body a reason to hold on to that muscle. Obviously, you're eating in a deficit, try keep protein high. Now, the studies around how much protein you need to eat, I think a lot of the literature says like 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. 1 gram per pound of body weight is like a very common prescription. Some people go as high as 1.2 grams, as high as 1.4 grams. Maybe that can help a little bit if you're in a deficit with satiety, feeling full, not feeling as hungry. But I would say if you're hitting the baseline of like 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, that is like ticking the boxes for muscle preservation. Any more is probably like a little bit overkill, maybe just covering your bases. Maybe you're using it for those like satiety reasons. Maybe it's just food preferences. Maybe that's what you enjoy eating, like high protein meals. Yeah, I would say just try keep as much muscle as possible doing those two things. And then just have realistic expectations for what the outcome will be of being in a deficit. You're probably not going to get stronger.
He's good. He's good. That was, your answer was specific to nutrition.
Yeah.
I'll just add, and I know both of us will agree on this, that we're never looking to train overly hard. We want to be able to recover from what we're doing.
Yeah.
But more than ever, if you're in a deficit, the last thing you want to do is train too hard. You know, you're going to be more susceptible to being under-recovered, more susceptible to injury, if you even want to consider that.
Yeah.
So don't give your body a reason to not be able to train. Just do what you can, but don't go overly intense, and you will be fine.
Yeah, I think that's good. Right, well, we go for one more question.
One
I'll
more
try to find
question.
a good
This
one.
better be a good question.
You find one, man. I've been asking all the questions.
Andrew
Man, do
asked
you
me-
do anything on this show?
He asked me, how do I grow my beard? Didn't have an answer to that. What did you call yourself the other day?
So since I've been shaving the head, I had to shave my beard in like 4 weeks. And it's a sorry excuse for a beard. It's just like a little bit of a chin strap. Mm-hmm. So I look like some of those Dagestani Russian fighters whose all their names end in like Magomedov. So I was Andrew Blackwood-Medov.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, see, I've jumped around the list so much for the questions that I don't even know what I've answered. And
About
what I
3
haven't.
questions in, I stopped looking because I was too lost.
How can powerlifters balance their sport with work, family, and other commitments? I will jump in first. I will say this can be hard because, like, what is balance? If you're trying to be like extremely successful at something, you're probably not looking for balance. If you're more of a recreational lifter who does it for social reasons and so on, maybe you'll be looking for more of a balance, but what balance is probably very subjective. Like, what is balanced for you, depending on your priorities, how much you want to go out, how much you're willing to sacrifice, so on. I would say for myself, I've probably sacrificed a lot, or like structured my lifestyle a lot around training, and maybe foregone a lot of like social outings or things like that for the sake of powerlifting, because my main objective has been performance, but that has been my priority. Like I've never felt that it's like, oh, I really want to go to this thing, but I'm not going to go to it because of powerlifting. It's more that my session tomorrow is very important to me, and I want to continue to see progress because the greater goal of whatever competition I have coming up is the main thing that I enjoy putting my energy into. So I don't know. Balance is a weird question. Now, maybe it is actually kind of relevant because last week I was away on holidays. Yeah. I was in Lanzarote for 5 days, and then when I came back, I went down the countryside to visit my grandparents for a few days. And during this time, I was not able to like eat in a deficit. I was trying to like guesstimate my food as best that I could, but I was with my girlfriend. We wanted to go out for like dinner and drinks. We wanted to enjoy ourselves. I was conflicted during that time, and I often find I am in those sort of situations because when training and nutrition is like suboptimal, I have like a nagging feeling of, okay, I'm not doing everything that I could to like see progress. But equally in those scenarios, if I was to go to the gym, I have a nagging feeling that I'm not being the best boyfriend that I could be, or I'm not being the best grandson, spending time like with these people, doing fun things, doing things that they want to do, because it would be impacting them if I was to spend all day in the gym. So I don't know, balance is a hard one because I did actually struggle a little bit last week between those two things. And I suppose it just came back to trying to do my best. I tried to tick all the boxes of like doing the baseline with my food. Like I was eating out pretty much every day and I was way under eating protein and I was way like overeating fat. I was sometimes above my calories, sometimes below it. Bit of a mess. Sometimes I was eating one meal a day. It is what it is. It was a relatively short period of time. So I was willing to sacrifice that, but there was a period of being like unsettled because I didn't know what the right or wrong thing to do in a given situation was. So maybe you can help me. How do I balance that better? How do I balance work and life and relationships and powerlifting?
I think you're doing pretty well, right? Because you are as high a level powerlifter as it gets, and you are maintaining a relationship well. You work, you do things, you walk the dog, you do everything. So I don't think you have an imbalanced life, but there's definitely a sense of scales tipping in the direction of being a high level, high performance athlete, and that's okay. I think assessing your priorities and maybe reassessing and taking some time to reassess every now and again helps. I think we can get lost going one direction or the other. Often the priorities and the balance comes with other people. That's probably what a lot of the question is referring to. How do you balance the other people in your life? Because, well, there's also, I'm in college. I have to balance it with college and things like this. And I guess it's just laying out my priorities, putting things up the top. Sounds simple as shit, but you know, training and doing really well, maybe now more than ever, I could say. This next year, I've really made a commitment to go all in, double down on everything related to training. I'm sleeping more, I'm eating more, I'm training as consistently as possible. And so those boxes are being ticked, and then I'm making sure, okay, are my college boxes being ticked? Then you look at how much other time. Conveniently, I am not attending to like other people. You have your partner. So there will be another box there. I make sure to see my family. I'm kind of bad at seeing my friends. I'll admit that. I think I don't see my friends as much as I either could or would like to at times. Sometimes I chalk it down to training and things like that. But then there are evenings where I've done my college work, I've eaten, I could see my friends, you know, it's possible. And that is something like where right now I'm having a reassess moment where I'm like, maybe there are times where I need to just text them and see what I can do, but it's okay. It's okay. I think talking to other people actually helps balance as well, because it takes you out of your bubble that you're in and it reminds you that there's other things and it reminds you how they do it.
Yeah, I think that was good. Just intermittently reassessing, reflecting, seeing where you are, what your priorities are, what your values are, and just trying to make sure that you are in line with those core values. That was pretty good. Balance is subjective. What does it mean to you? What are your priorities? And then try to structure your life in line with those as best as possible. And it's unlikely you will ever be like perfect or make all the ideal decisions, but so long as you are trying your best and you're open and honest and trying to do all the right things that you should, I'm sure you'll be fine.
There's also, it doesn't have to be, you don't just have to look at the immediate, like how do I balance today? It could be like, okay, you know, the summer gone, I was in America where powerlifting was not up the top of the list. And then there's going to be a couple months next year where I probably feel like I'm doing nothing else but powerlifting, and that's okay. Because it's like a bigger picture I've balanced where I've had time here where I'm not prioritizing powerlifting and then time here where it's number one, and that happens too.
Very good. Okay. I don't know how long we've been talking, but that was a bit of a long one.
Way too long.
Hopefully there is value to be taken from that.
Yeah.
There's still lots of more questions to go through in the future.
And send us in questions.
Yes, we'll put up a question box. We'll get more relevant questions, things that people want to know, people want answers to. So I think that will wrap us up for this episode. Thank you very much for listening. If you made it this far.
Keep your socks on, keep your shoes on. Andrew Blackwood.
And I apologize. I said I hate you earlier. I love you. I'm sorry.
I love you too.
Right. Socials, plug our stuff. On Instagram, Andrew Blackwood _. TikTok, Andrew _Blackwood. YouTube, Andrew Blackwood, I think.
2 Andrews on Barbell.
Yep. 2 Andrews on Barbell. Your socials.
Instagram, Andrew Rowe _Odyssey. TikTok, just put in Andrew Rowe. I don't really post on it.
Yeah.
Maybe I should.
Yep.
And that's us.
Yes. If you want coaching from this lovely gentleman over here, Odyssey Strength.
OdysseyStrength.ie or on Instagram. And then for Andrew,
you can go to Evolution Powerlifting, Evo Powerlifting on Instagram. Thank you very much. See you in the next one.